Hi, good evening. Good evening to Dominica. Good evening, brothers and sisters, wherever you are. Welcome to Contending for Dominica. It is the 28th day of February 2021, and we are grateful to be here this evening. We are thankful for all our blessings. We are thankful for the meals that we had today. We are thankful for our families, and we are grateful for all our blessings. Some of you went to church this morning, some of you did not. Some of you stayed home to give your God thanks and praises, and some of us, we took the day to work. Whatever it is, whatever you did, we are here and we are happy. We are grateful, and we just want to say thank you, Lord, for another day. This is the day the Lord has made, and we rejoice and we are glad. I am here, your host, on Contending for Dominica, our weekly Facebook and YouTube show held every Sunday from 8 p.m. local time. The program this evening rests on the question of whether it is financially and economically hard in Dominica. That is the program for this evening, and I want you to participate. It's an interactive show, and I just want to hear your views. It is not about my views, it is about our views. And I'm here basically to facilitate the program. I am not here to pontificate. I am here to entertain comments, entertain questions as we analyze Dominica's economy. As you know, we are a small island state, and like every other small island state, We have our economic pains, our economic challenges. We also have our economic glories. Dominica has been affected by storms over the past couple of years, and obviously that would have affected our growth. The question is whether we have recovered well, whether we have been on the right direction, whether we have done enough to grow our country, and whether we are going to be challenged by certain things which are within our control. So let us have a conversation here. Once again, I want to thank you for stopping by. Of course, you have other things to do. You could be looking at television, you could be playing, you could be elsewhere, but you have decided to stop here. And I want to thank you. I want to express my gratitude for your interest in the economic welfare of Dominica. It's our country. And a lot of times when we raise questions about Dominica, we tend to look at it from political lenses. But of course, all of us have political biases and preferences, but let us look at things objectively. Let us look at Dominica. Dominica, a small population, just about 70,000 people, smallest economy in the OECS, that is the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. We have the lowest wage rate, we have the lowest exports, we have the lowest foreign direct investments. But we also have positives. Our public sector debt to GDP is just about 75%. Our inflation rate is fairly stable. Our economic growth over the past few years has been positive, particularly in 2018 and 2019, post-Hurricane Maria. And we have the CBI. Dominica has been making quite a lot of money from the Citizenship by Investment program, which has become the main generator for public funds in Dominica. As you know, in the past, we depended solely on agriculture. In the 80s and 90s, we had what we refer to as the green gold, the banana era, where we generated millions of dollars, and the ordinary person in rural places allegedly could buy vehicles cash, build their homes in cash. Those days are over. Of course, like everywhere else in the world, we have had a transformation of our economic structure. We have had a transformation of our economic base. We're no longer dependent solely on agriculture. We have attempted to diversify our economy with limited success. But CBI, that is the economic engine of the island. The question is, have we done enough to develop our country, and are we in the right direction? I'm hearing a lot of complaints on the ground. People are saying, hey, things are hard. Small businesses struggling in some corners, and for some people, things are bright. So what is your take? Is it that hard in Dominica? Of course, we live in a COVID pandemic era, which has caused global economic contraction. And therefore, some of the economic pains that we have is not unique or exclusive to Dominica. Even the huge and gigantic economies in the world have had their economic sufferings and pains. However, in the circumstances, the question still remains, have we done well enough? And are we on the right direction? Are our people suffering? Why is it that Dominica is where it is today? What is the impact of the brain drain situation? What is the impact of our culture? Some people think that we have a single culture, or work ethic is not the best. Factors which affect our economic development. Is our governance style, is our economic priorities in place to make Dominica reach its full potential? Some of the questions. So I want to hear from you. I want you to share this live. I want you to be part of it, to discuss it. It is just another interactive program for us to analyze a topic of interest and significance in Dominica. We are going to go long this evening. We will keep the program just an hour long. And As I said, I want to hear from you. I want to welcome you to Contending for Dominica. Thank you for stopping by. Share this live and come on, share your views. Let me know what you think. Some of you may not be in Dominica, but of course you are from Dominica and you are connected to the ground in Dominica. I am sure you're hearing from your relatives as far as the economic situation is concerned. Some of you are responsible for the financial salvation of your family here in Dominica. Some of our relatives are struggling, and as such, you have to send your burials and your remittances here in the country. Of course, the unemployment rate in Dominica is not the best, but is it the worst? It may not be the worst. Our people have been benefiting from the government of Dominica in certain respects. What are your views? The social housing program, of course, is a major economic relief for a number of people here in Dominica. Some of the beneficiaries would not have owned an apartment had it not been the social housing program. So, what do you think? Tell me, what do you think? We're hearing about the construction of smart clinics. We're seeing the construction of smart clinics. We're seeing the construction of roads, and the government clearly has increased spending in the area of construction. The intention is to improve the quality of our lives, and in the process, the construction sector contributes more to the 1.5 billion Eastern Caribbean dollars economy. We want to see more happen in Dominica. We want jobs, we want higher salaries, we want to see an increase in exports, we want to see an increase in foreign direct investment, we want to see an increase in tourism activities on the island. Of course, COVID has limited tourism. Nonetheless, we want to see an improvement in the eco-tourism platform to catapult a better economy, because ultimately all we desire is a better economic outlook in Dominica so all of us can live a better life. After all, why are we alive? Why are we here? What's our purpose? Most of us are basically here thinking that our objective is to work hard, make money, build a home, take care of our children, retire and die, right? We live in a material world. And in as much as you're not materialistic and you're not chasing the world, nonetheless, you want a good economy. And that is why we're here. We're here to discuss the economic realities in Dominica. And I want to hear your views. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear whether you think that we are in a good place. All right. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Yes, what's the situation? Is it hard in Dominica? Are you satisfied? Are you glad? Are you disappointed? Do you think that we are going places? No, the reality is we are not the worst. Certainly not. This is a country, in as much as you're unemployed, you do not have income, you can run by your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle to get a plate of food. But are we content with that type of lifestyle? This is a country where you can get an apartment in your 30s or 40s should you not be in a position to build and you have contacts with the policymakers. You do not have to pay for an apartment. Of course, the beneficiaries of the apartments here in Dominica have not received any deed or legal document making them the legal owners, but the government of Dominica has given the undertaking that such beneficiaries will get their documents. But the point is, some of you in the United States of America, in Canada, or wherever you are, and here in Dominica, we have to work very hard to be able to build and pay our mortgages. And in Dominica, you can get an apartment you do not have to pay for, at least not that we are aware of. Ultimately, such beneficiaries will receive their deeds, their strata titles. That's our thinking. But so housing, you can get that without a struggle here in Dominica based on who you are. However, food, if you're unemployed, then you may have a garden. So that's positive. So in as much as things may not be the best financially, in Dominica, you can survive, right? And many of you here are surviving. You're doing pretty well. I am not hearing from you. I want to hear from you. Tell me, what do you think? You know, because our objective here on this show, on this broadcast, essentially is to elevate the discourse in Dominica, to elevate our thinking, our rationale, our logic, and our reasoning, especially in respect to matters which supposed to be of importance to you. I know that when you hear about the economy, you simply think of jobs and you think of the cost of living. Of course, it's more complex than that, but we are keeping it very simple here because what you're concerned about is how much money you have in your pocket, what is your disposable income, that is after you pay your mortgages, you pay your car loan, you pay your student loan, how much money left do you have to spend on recreation, to save, to take care of your children, and so on. Now, a lot of people are saying they are living from hands to mouth. So in as much as we have a working population, amongst them, you have what referred to as a working poor. That is persons who work from paycheck to paycheck and not able to save a lot of money. Of course, traditionally, we have a good savings propensity in Dominica, but when inflation occurs, that is the cost of living rises, your salary stays the same, naturally, your disposable income decreases, therefore you have less to save. So what is the position? Your savings have been depleting, your economic situation has not improved, and therefore you are struggling. And for those who are not working, of course, that's worse. If you're not working, you have to depend on your brother, your sister, your auntie, your uncle, then clearly it is not in your best interest that you stay like that. But how are we going to make things better? What steps are we willing to take? Are we going to call on our policymakers to take a different direction? Of course, every government has its own economic development plan, its own economic vision, its own economic model. It would appear from the point of view of Dominica's governance, we are focused on ecotourism, which is married to the CBI program. As you know, the CBI program is placed on two platforms, that is the Economic Diversification Fund and the investment option, which allows investors to buy a stake in an ecotourism development project in Dominica. And that is where the country has been able to raise quite a lot of money. And that money is being used for social programs, building roads, building smart clinics, and facilitating social programs with the intention to eradicate poverty and to elevate the quality of our lives. But are you satisfied? Do you think that's the best strategy as opposed to be using the government's money, that is our money, monies from the consolidated fund, to provide more incentives for the private sector, send more people to study, provide small loans to businesses, create a better environment for better economic situation? So these are some of the questions. Now, I'm not going to be here talking for an entire hour. So I'm going to look out for your comments. Tell me what you think. I want to know what is your view. I'm saying we do have some people here on the broadcast, and I just want to hear from you. I want you to tell me something. Are you in Dominica? And if you are, which part of Dominica are you from? Are you in the rural part of Dominica? Are you doing agriculture? Are you depending on your produce from your backyard, from your farm? Are you able to sell some of your produce to make some money to pay for your lights, for your water? Are you able to save money? Are you dependent on your relatives from abroad? Are you dependent on a politician? What is the position with you? Are you glad? Are you happy that you're in Dominica and not elsewhere? Of course, some of you who are on the broadcast may be abroad, and you may be thinking the other way around, that you should be in Dominica, because Dominica has certain advantages relative to our neighbors. I mentioned some of them already. When you are in Dominica, you are in a sweet place. You do not have to work two jobs. You don't even have to work for you to survive, right? And probably that, while it is good, it is also bad, because if we do not work, we are not going to really realize much economic growth, which depends on productivity. And productivity, on the other hand, depends on our working hours. How much work? What do we get out of our work? This is what we are talking about. Of course, once again, let me welcome you to Contending for Dominica. It is quite some time since I made an appearance, a live appearance, and I'm happy to be here with you on the last day of February 2021. I hope your day has started well, your week has started well, and this week all of us are going to have a great and productive week, a week with a lot of cheers, a week with a lot of success. We're here this evening to question whether things are hard in Dominica, and if you think it is hard, how hard is it? And what are the way forward? What are the ways forward to be more correct? What are we going to do? What are we going to employ to make things better in Dominica? Some of you, of course, will quickly say, well, a change of government. Some of you think that the reason why we have not progressed as quickly as our neighbors is because we have a government that is incompetent. It's because we have a government that has not really put a proper economic development plan in place. Some of you may think that we have a government that has focused too much on social development programs as opposed to economic development programs. What is the difference? Well, some of you argue that the government should place less emphasis on welfare and more emphasis on private sector development projects, more emphasis on economic growth, more emphasis on exports, more emphasis on employment, some of the economic areas which drives economic growth. Well, that's your view. Some of you may think that the government has done exceptionally well in that it has provided housing, it has improved roads, it has built a few sporting facilities. Even in that review, there are grounds for arguments, because whilst we have had some of these projects, we have seen that a number of employees on these projects are foreigners. Even the contracts are granted to foreigners, so we do not tap maximum and optimal benefits as the people from these projects. But of course, you have different views. There are different views. You have a view which is positive, and in other corners, it may be to be deemed negative. So it depends on where you take it from. And of course, each and every one of us are in our own situation, and we are best to talk about it. Some of us are in good financial positions, and some of us are not. But overall, from my observation, and I'm sharing my views from the ground. And when I say from the ground, I'm not talking from the point of view of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. I'm talking from reality. On the ground, I'm hearing that people are finding it very hard in Dominica. People are saying that, hey, I'm just working from hands to mouth. I'm not able to save. Just last week, someone who's working told me that her savings have been depleted. I also heard another story of this person who is dependent on tourism, which is almost non-existent in Dominica right now. You can imagine those who are dependent on tourism dollars, the sufferings and pains which they are going through. Those who are in a better position are able to go to the bank or credit union to get some monies, and some who do not have savings must depend on their relatives. So that is the reality. Of course, the public service, the main employment situation in Dominica. Those of you who are in the public service, you're better off than several people who have worked in the private sector because, of course, in the COVID situation, some businesses have either reduced in size and made some people redundant or cut on wages. So obviously the employees would be affected. So overall, that is the situation. I'm just looking at my phone to look at one or two comments people are sending via WhatsApp here. Yes. So so let me just see. I see Viva Mamo right here. Josh, are you sure the government has legal title of the houses that it is given out to the people? If these houses are built by CBI developers, who own them? How can the government give strata title for something it does not have legal title to? Just asking. I am ignorant on this. Well, Viva Mamo, you have raised a very important question. Of course, the public housing program in Dominica is a big thing. We have had a number of houses built in different parts of Dominica. We have had some built at Bellevue, Cassius, Plain, Grand Fork, Maho, Portsmouth, St. Joseph. All over the island, we have seen houses being built on what is dubbed as the housing revolution. And with these houses, a pertinent question continues to circle in the public domain, and that is whether the beneficiaries will get a certificate of title or a deed for the apartments. Why is that important? It is important because without a deed, these people are licensees. That is, all the Dominicans who are in the apartments throughout the country basically are there under the permission of the government. A change of government, and even with this government, could cause them to be out of the apartment. So if there's a change of government tomorrow and the people do not have title deeds, the government can simply ask that they vacate the apartments. That's one. Number two, in the absence of a certificate of title, it means that the beneficiaries cannot will or cannot give or devise or bequeath these apartments to their children. We have situations where you have beneficiaries who are of advanced age. Should they pass on, what happens? Can a child or grandchild move in into that apartment? Can the government allow that? Will the government allow that? Not necessarily. The government has a discretion. Now, just to come back to Viva Mamo's question, who is the owner of these apartments? Well, these apartments, in my view, are owned by the state. It is owned by the government of Dominica because they were built from monies and revenues which are owned by the people of Dominica. Monies from our consolidated funds or monies from the housing option as stated by the Prime Minister. Those monies, of course, came from the sale of our passports or our citizenships, and therefore the assets are owned by the people of Dominica. Legally, the apartments are owned by the government. Viva Mamo, I don't know whether you have a different view, but these apartments legally are owned by the government of Dominica, and the government of Dominica has a discretion as to whether it's going to provide title deeds to the beneficiaries. This question is very important, particularly for the people of the PT7 constituency, because you're talking about people who owned their houses, they had title deeds, and they were asked to move from PT7 into Bellevue to get these apartments. Of course, PT7 has not been officially been declared as a disaster area, and therefore mortgagers legally and contractually are still owing the banks, and the government has not cured that problem. And to take someone from a place where he owned a property outright legally and to put him elsewhere, give him an apartment and not give him a title deed, of course, that would make the person worse off legally. So Viva Mamo, I am not sure whether you agree with me, but my position is that the apartments are owned by the government of Dominica, and the government of Dominica has a discretion as to whether to provide title deeds to these people or whether to just affirmed their license, as it would appear right now, in that the beneficiaries were simply given letters saying that they have received, well, they have received the key. They have received the key, and some of the beneficiaries unfortunately do not understand that that does not make them the legal owners of the apartments. They are just there by permission of the government. Let me just take note of another comment here. Viva Mammoth, taking the argument further, who owns the legal interest projects like Kempinski? The so-called investors, economic citizens, the developer, or government? I would say all. Viva Mamo, I would say all of them own the projects. The government supposed to have interest in projects such as Kempinski. After all, the range project, that is the Kempinski project in Portsmouth, is even more lucid than others as far as the legal interest is concerned. You're looking at part of a national park, lands which were owned by the state granted to range for the construction of Kempinski. The investment option allows citizenship buyers to take a stake in a development project in Dominica, and therefore, from an investment point of view, they do have interest. And Dominica's government does have an interest as well. Montex Baron, good evening. How are you? Montex, being an economist herself, it would be nice to hear your views on the subject. You know, are you satisfied with the economic outlook in Dominica? Are things going to get better? Are things going to get worse? You know, of course, the COVID pandemic is not going to be here forever. At some point, we are going to see an improvement in the global economic situation. And when we see that improvement, will Dominica finally be ripe for economic prosperity? Because we have been struggling for the last 30 years trying to get ourselves going, as far as, well, the last 40 years to get ourselves going and to be counted as one of the economic leaders in Eastern Caribbean. You know, for those of you who think that Dominica is doing exceptionally well, you are mistaken. Dominica is the smallest economy in the Eastern Caribbean. And for you to really appreciate how our neighbors have done so much better than us, you have to look at the economic history of the Eastern Caribbean. And when you do, you will appreciate that in the 80s and 90s, Dominica was in the top 3 economies in the Eastern Caribbean. At one time, Dominica actually led. But what has happened? St. Lucia has left us behind. St. Kitts have left us behind, you know, probably 3 or 4 times. St. Lucia, same. St. Vincent, which used to be considered to be the poorest island in the Eastern Caribbean, has now left us behind. Grenada has left us behind. The question is, are we finally going to catch up with these islands, given that we make so much money from the from the citizenship by investment program? I would suspect that Viva Mamo may be of the view that we are not going to catch up with St. Lucia or St. Kitts or Grenada or St. Vincent because of the current policymakers we have in Dominica. You know, some people have been contending that our government has not placed enough emphasis on people's development, in that it has placed more emphasis on itself. And there are some allegations that some of the players and actors within the governance circle in Dominica have gotten rich relative to the ordinary Dominican. And therefore, we're not too sure whether such people would change their ways and really focus on driving the economic growth which is desired by Dominicans, because of course we want a better life. We want to see the revival of agriculture in Grand Bay, Montex, right? You want to see people go back to the land. We want to see people be able to build using cash and to buy their pickups, you know, using cash. We want to see a revitalization of economic activities in places like Bagatelle and Forceja. See the fishermen back on the seas. Of course, boats and engines have been given to people to go fishing, so we cannot say the government has not assisted in that regard. But for some reason, we have not seen an improvement in those areas. Could it be that the wrong set of people get the assistance from the government? Could it be that the cultural dynamics in Dominica has changed? We have a paradigm shift. People are no longer interested in working hard, or some people, because they will survive anyway. You can get an apartment, you can get, you know, a little help from your pal rep, somebody help you pay your bills, your child can get a scholarship without you having to face the bank. Of course, there are benefits and disbenefits in those kind of policies. But I want to hear your view. Viva Mambo, you raised an important issue here, and I responded to your concerns. If you're still on, I would like you to tell me further, what do you think? Because you raised questions, I gave my views. I'm sure you have your view, you being a very intelligent person, and it would be interesting to take note of your views. Montex, you as an economist, I would like to hear your views on the economic situation in Dominica. Tell me, what do you think? Do you think that we are doing well enough for us to boast? Do you think that we will have the international airport? And if we do, how is that going to transform the economy of Dominica? Are we going to employ hundreds of Dominicans on that project? Or are we going to get Chinese to come and work, as we have seen by many projects which have been financed by the Chinese government? Are we going to see economic growth because more money, of course, is going to be injected in our economy? You're going to see an increase in the multiplier effect, more consumerism. With more consumerism, more taxes, increase in government revenue, and that will permeate in other areas, growth sectors, economic sectors, and then within a year we just see an improvement in Dominica's economy. Of course, in 2019, we saw a very healthy economic growth in Dominica, and that was expected in that we had just come from Hurricane Maria, and we benefited from disaster economics, with all the projects, the rehabilitation of roads, bridges, and other areas. We saw an improvement in our economy. Are we going to improve post-COVID? Do you have confidence that we're going to have that international airport? And if we are going to get that international airport, do you think finally Dominica will be placed to get prosperous as some of us want it to be? Sunshine Lockhart, good evening, how are you? I hope all is well with you. I would like to hear your views on the topic here tonight. Once again, let me thank you for stopping by. Let me thank all of you who are here on the broadcast. This is Contending for Dominica. Your host is Joshua Francis. This is a weekly program. Every week I come here to interact with you. We discuss a topic of national importance, and I allow you to give your perspective. I'm not here to teach, I'm here to facilitate. Of course, you have a view, do not be shy, give your views. I just see Laroche. Good evening, my brother. I hope all is well with you. Wherever you are, I hope you have a good evening. Thank you for stopping by and contending for Dominica. Laroche believes that it's a hoax, that we will not get the international airport. He says the airport is in the sky. He says further, it will not come on the ground under labor. I'm not too sure if he's saying that we'll never see the international airport under the Labour Party regime. Well, of course, some of us can debunk that assertion on the ground that the government of Dominica has taken a practical step to realize the construction of an international airport by the acquisition of land at Wesley. This is not just a policy. This has been actuated where the government has compulsorily purchased private property at Wesley for the facilitation of the construction of an international airport. So, Laroche, your views may not be supported by the reality on the ground. And of course, we have seen the acquisition of land at Wesley in the past under the United Workers' Party administration in the 90s. We saw the international airport project started when the United Workers' Party government did just what the Labour Party government has done thus far. But unlike the United Workers' Party project, where we had the economic assessment, where we had plans, where we had proposals on source of funding, with the Dominican Labour Party government, we have not had that benefit. If anything, we have had inconsistent assertions on the source of funding. Sometimes the Prime Minister would say, well, it's a loan. Another time he says it's from the CBI. Another time it's from the Chinese. More recently, he said the monies will come from the CBI program. More and more citizenships are being sold. Something that we will discuss further, because I'm not one of them who necessarily support the sale of our citizenships without any limit. There should be a limit, after all. And Lara Shea is saying, okay, now you're getting the point. Angela Paul, good night, Mr. Francis. God hold you and keep you always. Angela, I appreciate your blessings. Thank you for stopping by. I hope all is well with you and your family. God bless you too. God keep you and protect you. Kitchener Laville, good evening, sir. This is a gentleman who continues to fight for the people of the Kalinago territory. He has been a very old political soldier. He continues to work with the people, for the people, and by the people. He's a man who has an ideology, something which is lacking in this country. It's really sad that we have gotten to a point where a lot of us are not standing for anything, and therefore we are vulnerable and susceptible to fall for anything as well. And for those of you on the broadcast, clearly you have an interest in the economic welfare of the country. You have an intellectual bone, and therefore that is why you're here. You're here to reason. You're here to give your views on logic. And this is what we're promoting in Dominica. This commercialization of politics in the country must be abated and eradicated. And it really starts with us. We must plant more seeds of intellectualization to get the ordinary and barefoot person to understand that the economic prosperity, the social prosperity, and the general well-being of the island is dependent on our thinking or lack thereof. And currently, we are not satisfied. Well, I am not satisfied that ordinary people are really thinking the way they're supposed to think. Hence, the reason why this government has been able to thrive in a country that has struggled in many respects. But as I said, right now we're getting and making a lot of monies from the CBI program, and some of us are satisfied with the way in which the monies have been spent, and some of us are dissatisfied. I want to hear you. The question is whether we are suffering economically in Dominica. Are things that hard for you? If you're on the island, please give me your views. You may be working, and you may be a working poor, or you may be an employee who's making monies and be able to save. After you take care of all your expenses, you can still save in this COVID pandemic era. Or you may just be unemployed and dependent on somebody else. Whatever, is it very hard? We know as a fact that unlike many other areas, you could be unemployed and yet do well in Dominica. You could be healthy because you can get a plate of food from your brother, your sister, a neighbor. You may have a plot of land where you can grow your own food and eat your own food. And of course, that's a blessing. That's a blessing because many of you who may be in the concrete jungle, if you're unemployed, then definitely you will suffer even more than the unemployed here in Dominica. And maybe it is because we have those kinds of blessings in Dominica. That is why some of us, we are just so easygoing and we stand up for mediocrity. We support politicians who do not even understand their own ministries, those who have been assigned as ministers. Sometimes I listen to a few ministers in Dominica and I say, only in Dominica. But let's get back on point here. We are looking at the economic situation here in Dominica. I see Gerald Dorset. Hi, good evening, sir. How are you doing? I hope all is well with you. Josh, will you accept a nomination come on the 3rd? That is March 28th Delegate Conference. Gerald Dorset, I am not too sure whether you're talking about the United Workers' Party Delegate Conference, but if you are, I must inform that the Delegate Conference for the United Workers' Party is scheduled for November 2021. Okay, my brother? And of course, that's a long time. A lot of things can happen. If we had a Delegate Conference next week, I would be unavailable to make myself prepared and ready for any of the positions. But of course, now until November is a long time. Currently, I'm not interested in taking up any executive position within the United Workers' Party. But I'm here. I'll continue to stand with the people and for the people and by the people. Viva Mambo, you said, just speak to what I call Tony economics. Tony and Clarence always boast that our banks and credit unions are very liquid and deposits and savings are on a high, which they advocate is a positive sign that the economy is doing well under labor. I think they are wrong. Banks are liquid but cannot give loans as people are unemployed. The increase in deposits and savings may not be due to excess domestic spending power. It may well be a factor of increase in remittances from overseas-based Dominicans saving their earnings, retirements and pensions, etc. Once again, let me welcome you to Contending for Dominica. Your host is Joshua Francis. This is a weekly broadcast. The objective here is to encourage discourse, encourage intellectualization, and to affirm those of us who believe that we need to stand for Dominica. Of course, this broadcast is not about me, it's about us. It's an interactive broadcast. I want to hear your views. If any one of you would be interested in actually joining me on video, please indicate that to me and you'll be allowed to come on video to share your views. I have a point here by Viva Mamo, and Viva Mamo raised a very, very important area. Of course, this is a gentleman who is on Facebook, on social media platform, discussing issues of national concerns and always give a view which is reasoned and balanced. And he's talking about Tony and Clarence's views in respect to the liquidity of financial institutions in Dominica. Well, it's a fact that our financial institutions, particularly the credit union, the National Credit Union, NCCU, is very liquid. Why is it so liquid? Where's that money coming from? Well, the credit union has probably over 60,000 members. And amongst those members are people from the diaspora. Some of you are in the United States, in Europe, in Canada, wherever you are, you send money back home to save. So that money is part of the liquidity in Dominica. And of course, we do have a few wealthy people, people with a lot of money, and they save that as well. And we have ordinary people throughout the island. We have a tradition of saving. People want to save. Now, whilst this money is available or make the institutions liquid, doesn't necessarily reflect the economic welfare in Dominica. A matter of fact, in some economies, people save more when they lack confidence in the economy. Some people, based on their culture, they fear to invest and therefore they put their monies in the bank instead of going into entrepreneurship. They fear out of uncertainty that things will get better and therefore they save that money. It's out of fear. They might think that things are going to get worse. So let me put $1 aside for tomorrow. So contrary to what Tony and Clarence think, the increase in savings and liquidity may be out of fear. People may speculate that the economic situation in Dominica is not going to improve, and therefore they need to have that money for wetter days. Another thing also is that we do not really have a vibrant entrepreneurship spirit in Dominica. If you look at Dominica, you just have the same businessmen and women. Of course, the natives are dominating the retail sector, and then you have indigenous businessmen such as the Sukis, the Jollies, the Charleses, and so on and so forth. And what type of business are we really doing on the island? It's just retailing. We don't have agro-processing, we do not have manufacturing, and as I said, the small businesses have suffered a lot because of the difficulties of doing business. The ease of doing business in Dominica is not the best. So people just put their money in there. It's a positive thing, it's a good thing, but it's not a true reflection of the national economic situation in Dominica. Okay, Viva Mamo. So that's my position. Of course, you have different views. To really measure the economic welfare of Dominica, we have to look at other economic indicators such as per capita income. Of course, you divide national income, which is over $1 billion, by the population of about 70,000 people, and you will get something like 7,000 EC dollars, which is amongst the lowest in the region in spite of the small population. You look at per capita income, you look at human economic indexes in terms of the number of graduates per household, availability and accessibility of healthcare services. The ordinary Dominican does have access to medicine. You look at all those things. You look at the number of graduates from high school, tertiary institutions, and so on and so forth. Dominica continues to have the smallest economy. Dominica has the lowest foreign direct investment. Dominica has the lowest export figures. Dominica has one of the highest um, um, debt per national income, well, not per, debt to national income rates in the Eastern Caribbean. Some of the realities, of course, lowest wage rate, one of the highest unemployment rates. The public sector continues to be the largest employer. The private sector continues to be very small. Absence of agro-processing, manufacturing, the offshore bank sector still at an infant stage. So we haven't really grown in Dominica, and you can look at the island and you can see it. I don't know why is it that some of us we are out there dreaming and thinking that Dominica has done so well. Sunshine Lockhart, I'm always willing to welcome an international airport. If it happens, then this time also it's been such a hassle to get to Dominica with all this technology in this world. I believe when Dominica was less fortunate, it was way easier getting to Dominica. I travel a lot and I go to the hustle every time. And the reason is because I love my country. But when that airport is there, I will believe it. All right. Well, Lockhart, all of us, we are keeping our fingers crossed. We're keeping our hopes up. We do want an international airport. The construction of an international airport supposed to help our economy because you're going to get an injection of capital in that people would be made employed. When people are employed, it means that they have monies to spend. Monies to spend means that the retailer will be making money because we would expect an increase in consumerism in the immediate vicinity of the construction of the international airports in that catchment area and nationally by extension. And therefore, with consumerism on the increase, with the construction sector expanding, our economy is supposed to do better. So from the get-go, the construction of the international airport is or would be a positive, holding everything else equal. In the medium term and long term, we would expect things to get even better. Of course, the international airport has to be financed. So the source of funding would really help determine how positive the international airport is going to be for Dominica in the medium term and long term. Because if it's all about debt, wow, already we have a high debt national income ratio in Dominica. If we were to depend just on loans to construct the international airport, that would not be a good sign. But our Prime Minister has informed that the main source of funding is CBI. CBI, and I've already shared my views in respect to the CBI. A lot of us are not looking at the CBI thing beyond this year and next year. Are we just going to keep selling our citizenships, making more and more citizens, economic citizens? Are we going to get to a point where we're going to have more economic citizens than people on the island? And if we do, what are the ramifications? Because an economic citizen has almost equal constitutional rights that all of us here have. The only thing is that they will not be able to just come and vote. They will have to meet the residency requirement to vote. But generally, everything else, they will have equal rights. They will not be they are not considered to be aliens. So they can come here and buy as much land as they desire. And we have started seeing that already. You can look at the capital of Roseau, where more and more properties are being purchased by economic citizens, Chinese nationals or foreign nationals. And because we are so busy looking for the next penny from the politician, we are not paying attention to those important things. If we really love our country and we have a bone of vision and appreciation for our ancestors, probably we should start paying more attention to those types of decisions which the government has taken in Dominica. I will just look at what Viva Mamo is saying there. I really appreciate the contribution from Viva Mamo. In June 2020, Carrie Chris reaffirmed the downgrading of our government credit rating from stable to negative credit debit rating. What is the real impact of this downgrade? Well, the really part of his downgrade is that it makes Dominica less credible in the global economic context, makes it less competitive to obtain loans, to obtain certain types of grants, and it's a negative overall for the country. And I'm happy you brought that up because that is just one of the negatives that we have had in Dominica. We have seen some improvement in areas, particularly post Hurricane Maria, which is expected. We boasted of about a 9% economic growth in 2018, and I think 2 point something in 2019. Or 2019, we saw 9%, and 2018, 2 point whatever percent. I have not seen the figures for last year, but we are not all negatives. But overall, you want to make an analysis of Dominica's economic situation from an absolute point of view and from a relative point of view. And I like relative analysis because you really measure your progress or lack thereof by looking at your neighbors, the progress or lack thereof of your neighbors. And if all your neighbors are ahead of you, then clearly something is not right with you. And that's the reality about Dominica. Everybody's ahead of us. Everybody is ahead of us. Let me just take note of more comments here. Please be part of the interaction. We are here to interact. We are talking about Dominica. Well, of course, if you have been listening to the Prime Minister of Dominica, he has been talking about providing incentives for the private sector. Now, what is one of the economic problems in this country as far as employment is concerned? Well, the government is the largest employer, and that itself is not a positive. Generally, throughout the world, the public service or the public sector is not very efficient. And where you have inefficiency, it means that you have a lot of waste. So, as far as employment is concerned, a visionary government will try to grow the private sector. This government has been in office for how many years? 21 years. 21 years. And the private sector has been limping, has been stagnant, has been struggling. And when you talk about the private sector, what really is there? You know, you just stores are opening, selling things, NASI selling more products, supermarkets, auto parts repair shops, auto part shops. Where is the manufacturing? Where are the businesses which are going to use our own products, our fruits, our vegetables, our brains? Where are the high-tech big businesses, the financial service businesses? Where are they? We don't have that. And that is where we give this government an F. An F. It has been a lazy government. How much creativity does it take to sell a passport? How much? Now, Senkit sold quite a lot of passports from since the 90s, but their passport proceeds were used to develop a number of projects, including agricultural projects, which have enhanced the economic welfare of the people of St. Kitts. Not that we have to use St. Kitts as a model, but I'm making a point to say that this government could and can do better with CBI monies. Can it just be about giving and giving without creating job opportunities and sustainable job opportunities to add that? Well, of course, it's a positive that we have ecotourism projects such as Jungle Bay and Secret Bay and Kempinski. Clearly, we are creating the environment for tourism, especially in alignment to the construction of the international airport. So that's a plus for the government. But all these projects are very risky projects. Absent agricultural projects, agro-processing projects, manufacturing projects. We have been hearing about a geothermal project for so many years, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent or being spent, and yet we have not been able to tap anything out of that project. Well, of course, we are about to end this. As I said, we are not going to be very long tonight, unless if you have a few other suggestions, a few comments, then we will definitely wrap it up. But as I said, and I discussed tonight, a number of people on the ground are crying. I listen to small business owners, entrepreneurs, consumers, employees, unemployed, saying that things are hard in Dominica. Now, things are hard as far as money is concerned, but in terms of eating and shelter, things are not that very hard because we still live in a community with a lot of love. We still live in a community with a lot of kindness where you can simply go at your neighbor's house to get a cup of tea, to get a plate of food, and be merry. And of course, you can get a free apartment. You can get scholarships for your children. So we're not the worst. But of course, for those of us who understand that independence is better, for those of us who understand that we can have better roads, more sporting facilities, more monies in our pocket to be able to travel, more independence to be able to take care of ourselves, monies to invest, whether it's in agriculture or whatever it is. We are aware that this government has not done very well. It's a government which has lacked basic economic development projects to create sustainable jobs on the island. And with the COVID pandemic, it has only made things worse. And if the trend, which is in Dominica, would continue for another year or two, then you will see more social problems in this country. I have observed for the past few weeks, we have had more arrests for trafficking drugs. And that may be as a result of the economic struggles in Dominica. People are looking for means of employment. People are going on the ground to make money, and that includes drug trafficking. Why are they doing that? Because they have mortgages, because their savings are depleted, because things are hard. And what we are seeing is non-traditional drug dealers on the market. We have also seen a rise in human trafficking. I do not have to wait for the statistics from Central Police for me to come to that conclusion. As an officer of the court, I have been taking note of the type of offenses which are coming before the court. And superficially, it would appear that what I'm seeing is a manifestation of a breakdown of certain areas in Dominica because our economic reality appears bleak. So let's hope for the better. Let us hope that this government understands that it must act urgently in arresting our social maladies and our economic pains. Let us hope that things will get better. Let us hope that the ordinary Dominican will boast that he has monies to spend, because we want better for all of us. Let me just see what Viva Mamu has there. He says our economy is dying or dead. According to the ECCB recent statistics, inflation is rising, high in Dominica, yes, and that is correct, Viva Mamu. For those of you who do not know what inflation means, we are talking about the cost of living. The cost of living is on the rise in Dominica. It means that your spending power is in decline. Now, clearly, when you go at WeChat, you look at the number of goods in your basket with $100 versus the number of goods that you had in your basket 5 months ago. That's a simple measure. You take the same products that you would have bought 5 months ago, or let's say a year ago. What you would realize, you have to pay more for it. That is how we measure inflation, and that is on the rise in Dominica, and that is not good. Prices are going up, salary stays the same, inflation is on the rise. Means your disposable income is lessening. Viva Mamo goes on to say, the loss of purchasing power has negatively impacted the general cost of living for the common public, which has ultimately led to a deceleration in economic growth. That is correct, Viva Mamo. That's a very good point. The overall demand for goods and services in Dominica is increasing much more rapidly than the economy's productive capacity, which is almost non-existent in Dominica. Hence, this has led to higher demand, which results in price rises and which contributes to the increase in inflation. Well, yes, and that may be also because of the difficulties in transportation of goods to Dominica in terms of supply. We may have seen a drop in supply. Some of our agents may have dropped off the market resulting from the COVID struggles. Therefore, less supply makes inflation happens where demand stays the same or it increases. But overall, that is not good. That's not good for us because at the end of the day, with inflation, it means that the power of your dollar is less, and therefore the quality of your life it reduces, holding everything else equal. All right, so let me just thank you, Viva Mamo. I am very appreciative for your contribution, for your learned contributions. As usual, you are well researched. You went on the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. I was on it earlier just to look at some figures as far as what's happening with Dominica's economy, and you did raise an important point here in regards to inflation. I want to thank you. I want to thank La Roche. La Roche, I suspect that you shall return to Dominica to make your contribution. Seem to have a passion for your country, and I hope you'll be able to do so one day. Gerald Dorset, I want to thank you for stopping by. I want to thank everyone else who stopped by, and I want to welcome you to next week's edition. We will continue to look at the economy. I am trying to get an economist to come on board here. Of course, a couple of weeks ago, we had Claudia Sanford and Ken Vital. I have not had a lady on this broadcast, and I am inviting a lady to come and tell us what is your perspective on the economy of Dominica. If you're an economist, such as Montex Baron, I'm inviting you to come on board. Come and share your views. Do not be shy. This is not partisan politics. This is about Dominica. We are contending for Dominica, and we want you to speak the truth. We want you to be true to yourself and to the country. If something is good, you say it's good, and if it's bad, you say it's bad. In any event, each and every one of us owns an opinion, and our opinion must be exhaled. We may like it, we may not like it, for those of us who hear the opinion from another person, but we agree to disagree. So I invite you to come back here next Sunday for us to discuss the economy of Dominica. Viva Mamo, get your figures, come back, share your views, let us know what's happening. Let us look at things from a different perspective. As you know, mass media is dominated by the Dominican Labour Party government, and part of their strategy is to spread a lot of propaganda. Of course, it's not everything which is being disseminated from the Labour Party outlets are lies. Some of them are truth, but their spinners find a way to spin truth into a way to advantage their political agenda. And persons like Viva Mamo has taken such responsibility to unravel the propaganda generated and perpetuated by the Dominican Labour Party government. So once again, let me just thank you for standing by. Let me thank you for standing and contending for Dominica. It's our island, and we must continue to love our island. We must continue to stand for our people, especially the weak, the poor, and the marginalized. We have a country to grow. We have a country to develop. We have a country to take further. We have a country to make prosperous, and we can be prosperous. We can make it. We can do it. We shall do it. So once again, I want to thank you. Let me just take note of Marva Shidell. She said, perhaps the ladies might have better ideas. Yeah, Marva, we had a prime minister who was a lady, and some hail her as the best prime minister ever, and some think that she was not so good a prime minister. But of course, under her leadership, there were a lot of positives. One of the things which we are lacking that she possessed is integrity in governance. She was considered to be a clean prime minister. She did not have her hands dirty and corrupt as alleged that our current prime minister has. And that is one of the positives. However, some people think that she had not done so well as far as economic growth is concerned. And we didn't really have the type of diplomatic relationships that we have today. You know, one of the positives of the prime minister, if you want to give him kudos, that may be one of the things that we'll give him kudos for, that he has been able to establish quite a number of diplomatic relationships under his reign. And China being the main one, given that the Chinese have contributed significantly to our economic growth and development. So that is one of the positives that we may want to give him. But I'm going to close this evening. I want to thank you. And I want to urge you to return next Sunday. Please share the live, share it on your page, and inform your followers that every Sunday from 8 p.m. local time, that Joshua Francis meets with you to discuss economic issues on the island. This evening, we looked at the economic situation in Dominica. We looked at whether things are that hard. I didn't quite get views from the barefoot man. Of course, the time may have kept him or her away. But next Sunday, we'll be back on the same topic. We're going to explore the economic roads of Dominica as we look forward to a better country. So once again, good evening. God keep you, protect you, and bless you. Have yourself a wonderful week. Until next time, this is Joshua Francis, and just want to wish you the best. So take care. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Have a beautiful
Pon kote la mwen pa mwen,